So my friends and I have been working on this game called The Drunk Thief. In this video, we're going to take our prototype and start the process of creating what is called a demo. A demo is that free trial where you can try a game to see if you like it or not. Now, according to the OG gamer George Washington, if someone cannot try your game, then they probably will not play your game. Or at least that's what AI Overview told me. I love technology. Now, we want people to play our game, so we need to get cooking. It's been a minute since the last devlog, so let me catch you up. About 6 months ago, we started taking those first steps towards a demo, and we did that by deleting the prototype. And I know what you're thinking. Why? Well, the old project had some pretty major design flaws. Like 7 folders named Factory, wrong scaling in the level, shadow issues. The 3D models for the cardboard boxes somehow got corrupted, and now they're the size of rooms. The old modular design caused lag in the editor. TLDR, the old project was cooked, so we started anew. And that was about 6 months ago. Since then, I've done some work on this, but it's a lot of not so flashy technical stuff. It's a lot of architecture and having systems ready to handle the rest of the game. Really building that firm foundation that the rest of the game can be reliably built on top of. A lot of my projects in the past have been game jam games, multi-month projects at most, and they are very much held together with just duct tape and glue. Now I need to worry about portability, possibly adding more languages, API support for things like Steam, or considering other consoles and if they'd even let an indie game like this on it. We have a lot more to consider than just make it function on web and Windows. For example, we added in controller support. So someone in my Game Engines community created a tool called Druid, and I've been using that for a lot of the UI on my games. It's great, but it only really works with the mouse and touch controls, and I wanted to get my controllers working. So I created what we call a wrapper. Basically, there's a code base and you write some additional code around it so it plays nice with everything else. I named this new system Wild Shape. You get it? Because in D&D, the druid can use Wild Shape to turn into something else? After that, I added a bunch of settings for rendering and upscaled the graphics. It's really important to me to make sure this game can run on older and weaker hardware. Then I touched grass and things got out of hand. I went to Alaska. After that, I participated in the GMTK Game Jam, which, your boy got third. I then spent 2 months editing videos about it. Yeah, I started to slack a bit on Drunk Thief, didn't I? In that time, someone created a new Defold rendering software with some really solid lighting. Now, a lack of built-in lighting has been one of my long-standing complaints with Defold, so I was hyped to try this. The prior prototype we made had a simplistic light system from a different community asset, but it had limitations. So I downloaded the new system, tried to get it up and running on my 2016 laptop, and was getting a solid 3 to 4 frames a second. So, not really the best fit for our game. There's also a bigger issue as well. It kind of destroyed my laptop. When I turned on my laptop again, I was forced to a BIOS screen and couldn't get off. After some research, I learned that the laptop wasn't detecting Windows since the hard drive broke. So my laptop is unfortunately passed. I'm sorry. I did everything I could. You got me through college. You got me through my first job. You got me through COVID. You got me through it all. Sure, you broke on me all the time, and sure, you ran very slowly, but it was a comfort slow. It was a slow I could rely on. This is so bad.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
I don't know what we're doing.
Oh, that's so good. So in case you didn't notice, I found my green screen. So subscribe for more cringy clips. I can do so much. I'm so excited to have this thing. It fell, didn't it? So my laptop is dead, and at this point, I only have like 15% of the year left. Why does that matter? Well, at the beginning of the year, I gave myself a whole bunch of different goals, and one of them was getting the Drunk Thief on Steam. So if we're gonna check this item off my list, we gotta do it now. Now you may have noticed that my friends have been oddly absent from the video so far, and that's because, like me, they got extremely busy. But all of that stuff is past, and we finally have an opportunity to just send it. So we hopped on Discord together, and we got back to work.
Back to work!
Hey, it's been a minute! What's your excuse for not working on the game?
You made us do the GMTK game jam, so
Yeah, he had to recover from that for a couple months.
I still think I'm catching up on sleep from that.
Yeah, you expected way too much from us. Like, come on, man.
Alright, so here's my idea for getting the game back on track.
Forcing each other to work.
Pretty much. We hop on and we just stay on for like 2 hours and try to make progress. Like, I think we'd eventually get somewhere. The actual plan I have for the demo is pretty simple on paper. Open with an intro cutscene to introduce the thief. This serves as both a narrative hook and character introduction. From there, we'll do a small variety of levels showing off mechanics that make the game unique. 3 sounds like a really good number here. Follow that up with some sort of cliffhanger that will be resolved in the main game. With the plan in place, I started by modeling a sketchy van to use in the intro. I've made some cars in Blender before, but I decided to go a step further and add an interior. I'm still pretty new to 3D modeling, so things like the floor of the van are super jacked up. I don't think the player will ever see it, so I'm just gonna ignore it for now. Preston, what do you think this van is missing right now?
It's definitely missing wheels. It looks like one of those cars where they like purposely make it look like it's swimming through the cement. You could also give it a bumper.
That's a pretty fair bumper.
we lost Preston.
Oh. That's why it got so quiet. So, after all that, I finally got it in Defold, but it had some strange artifacts. From a prior version of the game, I learned that transparent models hide sprites for some reason. So, instead of touching render code, since OpenGL keeps me up at night, I made the car windows transparent sprites themselves instead of a 3D model. I'm pretty satisfied with the results, even if it is a little bit jank. One of the big questions I've had is how far I can actually push Defold in terms of 3D models and rendering power. I started adding in more and more vans to see the limit. The editor started to slow down with 256 vans loaded in. Oh yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Now we're cooking with gas. The game itself was struggling, so I tried some of the optimization settings I added in just to learn that they didn't do anything. Glad I wasted a week adding that in. With the van questionably working, I decided to address the fact that the game takes place in a giant empty void. Now, traditionally games fake atmosphere with what is called a skybox. Basically, there is a big cube, circle, or other shape over the level with a texture to give the illusion of a sky. I found a rare Defold 3D tutorial and it worked surprisingly well on the first try. From here, I began to do what is called a blockout or gray boxing, where essentially I plan out a level without committing to the art. However, this isn't a level, but rather a test of different camera modes I'd like to add in. A 3D game needs a camera that can do a bunch of things a 2D camera just doesn't need to worry about. I bet your 2D camera can't do this! The camera from the last version was quite glitchy, so I started building it from the ground up. I started by sketching out my ideas on a note card because I'm an old man at heart. The camera itself is one script that uses different classes or modules to load in different camera logic. The first few were simple. Cutscene camera literally does nothing. Security camera tracks back and forth. The first person camera I borrowed with Control-C, Control-V from another project, but it's okay since it's MIT licensed on GitHub, so I don't have to worry about implementing that myself. Now that that's over, time for the more interesting ones. My next idea was a limited perspective first-person camera, something that you'd have for hiding in a horror game. So I modeled a bed to hide under. The pillow is literally a brick though. To make the camera work, I copied the first-person camera and gave it restrictions on looking up and down. After that, I made a boundary break camera where you can basically take the camera anywhere you want. I then started working on a third-person camera, and it was pretty rough. Our 2D art doesn't look good unless it's viewed head-on, so I tried to rotate the sprite to follow the player, and it really did not want to work. It somehow gave Derek the ability to fly at one point. Like, I'm not even mad, I'm just confused how our boy hit orbit. After a little bit of code surgery and adding in just one more else if statement, I finally got it working. Sometimes it glitches a touch, but that's future me's problem. With that, I was feeling pretty good about the camera system. As I turned to watch the sunset, I realized all of the shadows were the wrong way. As I turned to watch the sunset, I realized the shadows really didn't look that good. As I've talked about before, Defold doesn't have a built-in shadows system, so I'm using a free community asset that I've spent a bunch of time fighting with. Right now, they look kind of blurry around the edges. I didn't have this in the old prototype, but that was also scaled up times 10, which made the shadows bigger and hid the blur. The reason he's so much smaller is that the shadow map has a limited size range. Now, I could do something like always move the playable space to be in the shadows window. That way, he would still have his shadow, while the stuff out of bounds will not. But that seems like it would cause way more issues than it would solve. So, right now, we have the choice between bad shadows, but easier to create levels, and good shadows, but more complex programming. There's also option C, which is I figure out how to make shadows better on a larger scale, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. So, I decided to ask Preston and Jared. The issue is, well, A, his shadow's backwards, ignore that. It just stops existing he just moonwalks everywhere.
No, his shadow looks kind of worse, I think.
Because like if they're fuzzy, I guess to me it's not a huge deal, but I could understand from an art perspective why you wouldn't want it that way.
Yeah, I haven't messed with visual looks too much to be really thinking about it at the moment.
That went well. I guess that's a problem for future us. It's kind of dependent on the overall direction we go with our graphics. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a design issue where we want this game to look like Paper Mario, but we're not sure how far to actually push it. Preston and I had competing ideas. She worked on her idea, and I tried to 3D model a level. I ended up recreating level 1 from Drunk Thief Classic in 3D. In first person, it felt claustrophobic. In third person, it felt alright. Ignore the ceiling, is just the floor again. I'll fix that later. I modeled a few more objects for the house. Fridge, nightstand, dresser, bookcase. I then started to realize how much time and energy it would take to model an entire game out and began to wonder if there was, in fact, a better way to do this. That was rudely interrupted when I accidentally enabled OneDrive, which jacked up all the files in the game. That cost me an entire night of work to figure out. Thanks, Windows. Very cool. I got back on track and started messing around with making Preston's level idea into a proper playable space. I grabbed some art from Chernobyl 2, which we made for the GMTK game.
1 hour later.
Derek's size was off, and he felt like a little kid running around his parents' house. I then continued to fight with the light levels in Defold since the texture looked different in Blender versus in-game. Once I figured it out, I got a pretty smooth room transition in between the living room and garage. While I waited on Preston to finalize her design, I returned to messing with the 3D level. Now, I'm not an architect, but going through a bathroom to get to a bedroom seems like a poor design choice. Plus, if I can build the map in a 2D level editor, something has gone wrong since we're not really utilizing the 3D part that's causing me so much heartache. I redesigned the house slightly and tried to add in a basement by modeling the base model. That didn't go well and it looked terrible. So I tried again by modeling the basement completely separately, which seemed to be working well. Just ignore that the ceiling doesn't exist and you can kind of spy on the rest of the house through it. For those of you keeping track, this is now the second time I've messed up a ceiling. Keep in mind, I've only created 2D projects up until this point. Up is just not a direction I think about while making games. But don't act like you would either. Seriously, when's the last time you gawked at a ceiling in a Call of Duty game? I also tried to do a mix of limited perspective, but a still 3D environment. And that leaves us with no less than 4 different unique styles that we can do with the game. 5 if we revert back to 2D. First person, third person limited, 2D with a 3D floor, and full 2D. If you like one style over the other, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's kind of as far as we were able to make it. Yeah, we made some progress on the demo, but we really didn't finish it, and right now we have way more questions than answers. But I don't think that's a bad thing. If we can spend the time right now to find the fun, to really hammer out these questions, then we do have the opportunity to just take off with this game. There is so much I'm excited to work on here, but we need to take the time and make sure that that foundation is good, that we have a clear direction. Or, as I like to put it, direction matters more than speed. So I'm okay going slower right now to make sure that we're going in the right direction. Well, we didn't get the demo done, but I think we have our goal for next year. So, funny story. I showed my 2025 goals board at the Bible study I teach, and a bunch of them told me they thought I had get drunk as one of my goals for 2025. I really need to work on my phrasing this year, I guess. You were slow, you broke, yeah, but you always pulled through in the end. But not this time. This time that one little render software running a little bit too long and you just boom! Is that a good one? Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing to join us on this journey. I have a lot of really cool stuff planned that I can't wait to show you all. If the next part hasn't come out yet, check out one of the videos on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.